The morning sun poured through the stained-glass windows of Oak Ridge Chapel, casting soft amber streaks across the polished pews. Laughter and whispers floated in the air. Guests straightening their ties, adjusting hats, craning necks toward the back doors. The wedding was moments away. At the altar stood Grant Bennett, tall, polished, glowing with nervous joy in a tailored black tux. His dark blonde hair was neatly styled, and his green eyes sparkled beneath the soft glow of the chandeliers. Next to him, barely waist-high, stood his 8-year-old son, Micah Bennett, the ring-bearer. A tiny version of his father, curls tamed, bow tie crooked, clutching a small velvet pillow like it held the world. "You look great, Dad," Micah whispered, his voice thin, barely above a breath. Grant leaned down, chuckled, and ruffled his son's hair. "Thanks, buddy. I've got the best wingman here. Can't lose now." Micah smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. His tiny fingers gripped the pillow tighter, white-knuckled. The first notes of the wedding march swelled, and the room rose as one. All heads turned to the back, except one. Micah didn't move. His eyes stayed locked on his dad. Not the doors, not the music. His heart raced. The chapel doors opened, and there she stood, Celeste Monroe, a vision in lace and pearl. Her golden hair spilled over her shoulders like a bridal commercial, and her blue eyes shimmered as she walked. She smiled, the kind of smile that fooled everyone. Everyone except the boy. She moved down the aisle in slow motion. The air felt thick, like molasses. Grant's eyes lit up with love. He whispered something Micah couldn't hear, and wouldn't have cared to. The officiant began speaking. Words about unity, vows, and forever. But Micah, he wasn't listening. His stomach twisted. His eyes flicked to his father, then back to Celeste, her hand now intertwined with Grant's. She looked perfect, but Micah knew better. He remembered the night he overheard the phone call. The name Travis, the word accident, the phrase after the honeymoon. He remembered the threats. The bruises hidden under long sleeves, the sweet voice that curdled into venom when no one else was around. And now, here they were, 10 minutes from "I do." Micah swallowed hard. The officiant turned a page in his leather-bound book. "If anyone can show just cause..." The words echoed like thunder in the boy's chest. "Why this couple should not be joined in matrimony." Micah's breath hitched. Let them speak now. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out, or forever hold their peace. A beat of silence. Micah blinked. His father turned to him with a soft, curious smile. Micah's voice trembled, but it broke through the hush like lightning splitting sky. "Wait." The sunlight filtered through the stained glass windows of Oak Ridge Chapel, casting hues of amber and rose on the polished wooden pews. But Micah Bennett didn't notice. His small fingers trembled as they clutched the velvet ring pillow. Across the aisle, Celeste Monroe beamed, radiant in white silk and lace, her golden hair curled to perfection. But to Micah, the shine didn't reach her eyes. He remembered the first day she stepped into their lives. How Grant Bennett, his father, had looked at her like she was a miracle. Back then, Micah wanted to believe it too. But that was before the whispers, before the bruises hidden under long sleeves, before the phone calls late at night, in hushed tones, filled with names like Travis. Micah blinked, snapping back to the moment. The officiant's voice floated through the air, each word feeling heavier than the last. Behind the soft music and polite smiles, Micah could feel it. A lie being wrapped in white and sealed with vows. He'd tried more than once to speak to his dad, but Grant was always too distracted, too in love, too desperate to move on from the grief of losing Micah's mom. So Micah waited, watched, Every dinner where Celeste brushed off his questions with a forced laugh. Every time she texted M and hid the screen when Grant walked in. Every slip of her mask when she thought no one was looking. He saw it all, and he remembered. 3 nights ago, a voice, her voice. Once the ceremony's done, we'll start phase 2. He'd stood outside her study, heart pounding as he listened. The policy's active. He has no idea. Travis is handling the details. Micah had backed away slowly, the floorboards creaking under his socks. She almost heard him. Almost. Now, here he was. Front row, front seat, front line. His father stood at the altar, love-struck and unsuspecting. And next to him, Celeste Monroe, a storm hidden under a smile. The officiant's voice rose again. If anyone objects to this union. Micah's throat dried. His knees trembled. But before fear could take over, he stepped forward. Eyes locked on his father. Voice shaking, but loud enough to echo through the chapel. Stop the wedding. Gasps rippled through Oak Ridge Chapel. The officiant froze mid-sentence. Guests craned their necks. Grant Bennett's jaw slackened. Micah, he asked, voice barely a whisper. But the 8-year-old didn't flinch. He held the pillow like a shield, trembling yet resolute. You can't marry her, Dad, he said, breath shaking. She's lying to you. Laughter, forced and too bright, cut through the silence. Celeste Monroe tilted her head toward the crowd, her veil shimmering under the stained glass. Oh, honey, she cooed. This is just nerves. He's overwhelmed, aren't you, sweetheart? She stepped forward, reaching out. Micah stepped back. No. His voice cracked, but louder now. She's not who you think. She's not kind. She's not safe. Grant blinked, glancing between the two. He gave a cautious smile, kneeling down. Buddy, what's going on? He asked softly. Did something happen? Micah's eyes filled, not with fear, but frustration. She talks to someone named Travis when you're not home, he said. She's planning something. I heard her. The insurance. Phase 2. A plan. The air thickened. No one moved. Celeste's smile had vanished. Her hands clenched the bouquet tighter. Grant, she said low and sharp. This is ridiculous. But Grant didn't respond. He was staring at his son. Micah reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded paper. I printed it, he whispered. From her laptop. Grant took the paper. A policy document, names typed in black and bold. Celeste Monroe listed as primary beneficiary. A payout clause labeled accidental death. $5 million. His fingers trembled. You went through her computer, he asked. I had to, Micah said, voice thin. I tried to tell you before, but you didn't listen. Celeste stepped forward. Anger flashing now, eyes no longer soft. You're letting a child sabotage our wedding, she hissed. He's jealous. He's making this up. But Micah was already turning to the crowd. There's a man, with a scar on his face, he said, scanning the room. His name's Travis Cole. She's been meeting him. He pointed to the back. Gasps again, heads turned. A man in a dark suit, trying to slip out the chapel doors unnoticed. That's him! The shout was loud, raw, echoing off marble. A groomsman stood, lunged, grabbed the man by the arm. The room erupted into chaos. Celeste screamed. Grant stood frozen. Micah just stood there, 8 years old, heart pounding. But he'd done it. And nothing would ever be the same. The police arrived within 10 minutes. Sirens cut through the spring air outside Oak Ridge Chapel. Loud, jarring, real. Inside, the room had fallen to whispers. Travis Cole, the man with the scar, was handcuffed on the stone steps. His face was slick with sweat and defiance. Micah watched from the pews, curled beside his father, still in his little tux, still clutching the ring pillow like it was armor. Grant Bennett hadn't spoken since they sat down. The crumpled insurance form rested on his lap. He kept looking at it, then at the chapel doors, like expecting Celeste to reappear. But she was gone. She had vanished the moment Travis was seized. He had called out her name, panicked. She had bolted through the side exit, veil flying behind her like smoke. Gone. A cop walked up to Grant, notepad in hand. "You the fiancé?" Grant nodded, his voice hoarse. "Was. Not anymore. Mind stepping outside? We need a full statement." He turned to Micah. "You good, son?" Micah nodded, though his hands trembled. "Stay right here. I won't be long." But as Grant stood, Micah grabbed his sleeve. "Do you believe me now?" Grant knelt slowly, his hand cradling Micah's cheek. "I should have believed you the first time." Micah's lips quivered. He leaned in, and for a long moment, father and son just held on. Outside, flashing red and blue lights bathed the church facade. Guests spilled out in stunned clusters, whispering, pointing. Some consoled Grant, others filmed. Someone live-streamed. 8-year-old exposes bride as scammer. The headlines were writing themselves. One reporter shoved a mic toward Grant as he emerged. "Is it true she was trying to kill you for insurance?" He didn't answer. He just kept walking, down the steps, through the crowd, to the cruiser where Travis Cole sat cuffed. Grant stared at him. "You and her?" he asked, voice low. Travis sneered. "She had bigger plans than you ever knew." A bitter laugh. "Can't believe it was the kid who ruined it." Grant's jaw tensed, but he said nothing. Just turned, walked away. Inside, Micah sat quietly. The chaos fading now. The vows that were never spoken. The wedding march, cut short. The ring pillow still in his lap. 2 silver bands tied by white ribbon, untouched. A soft voice broke the silence. "Micah?" It was Jackie Bloom, his school counselor, there as a guest. She knelt beside him, her face kind but pale. "You were very brave." Micah looked down. "I didn't want to ruin things," he whispered. "I just wanted Dad to be okay." Jackie touched his shoulder. "You did more than that. You saved him." Micah didn't smile, but for the first time in weeks, he exhaled. And the fear finally started to lift. 3 days later, the house was quiet. Too quiet. No wedding streamers, no champagne glasses in the sink, just silence. And 2 voices trying to find a way forward. Micah sat at the kitchen table, feet swinging above the floor, a half-eaten bowl of cereal in front of him. Across from him, Grant Bennett scrolled his phone. Not on social media, but through emails from the police, from lawyers, from fraud investigators. He hadn't touched his coffee. Neither had said much since breakfast began. Then Micah broke the silence. "Is she going to jail?" Grant looked up slowly. "She will, if they find her." Micah stared into his cereal. "What if they don't?" Grant leaned forward, voice firm but gentle. "She's not our problem anymore. You did the right thing. You told the truth. That's what matters." Micah nodded, but his eyes stayed downcast. "I heard you on the phone last night," he said softly. Grant froze. Micah glanced up, hesitant. "You told Uncle Ben you felt stupid." Grant exhaled, sitting back. "I did feel stupid. Still do." He rubbed his temples. "I invited her into our lives. I let her near you. I let myself fall for her. And I ignored the person who mattered most." Micah's lip trembled. "I didn't mean to ruin the wedding." Grant leaned in. "You didn't ruin it. You saved it. And me." A pause. "You didn't just stop a wedding, Micah. You stopped a crime. That takes guts." Micah blinked, then frowned. "But why didn't you believe me the first time?" That hit harder than anything else had. Grant closed his eyes. "I don't have a good answer." He opened them again, voice heavy. "Maybe I wanted to be happy so badly. I couldn't hear anything that didn't fit the picture. Micah nodded slowly. I get that, he said quietly. Grant smiled, sad and proud at once. You shouldn't have to. They sat in silence for a beat. Then the doorbell rang. Grant stood cautiously. Micah watched him disappear into the hall, heard muffled voices. Then Grant returned, holding a letter. Handwritten. No stamp, no return address. Micah tilted his head. Who's it from? Grant opened the envelope carefully. Inside, a single sheet of paper. 4 words. Tell your son I'm sorry. No name, no signature. Micah's breath caught. Her? Grant nodded once, then walked to the fireplace and fed the letter to the flames. They watched the paper curl and blacken. No more shadows, no more lies. Just 2 people, father and son, watching the past burn quietly in their living room. A week later, the backyard smelled like fresh soil. Grant knelt beside a bag of fertilizer, sleeves rolled up, sweat beading on his temple. Micah, a small shovel in hand, stood beside a sapling, tiny, green, and trembling in the wind. You sure about this one? Grant asked, brushing dirt from his hands. Micah nodded. Japanese maple. It doesn't grow too fast, but when it does, he looked up, brown eyes firm. It gets strong. Grant smiled, the first real smile in days. All right, he said. Let's give it a home. Together they dug, not to bury something this time, but to build something. Micah patted the dirt around the base, his hands muddy. Do trees remember? He asked suddenly. Grant glanced at him. What do you mean? Micah shrugged, voice small. If something bad happens nearby, do they keep it? Grant paused. I don't know, he said honestly. But maybe they remember how they survived. Micah looked at the sapling, nodding as if that made perfect sense. Then softly, can we tell it about Mom? Grant's throat tightened. He crouched beside his son and whispered. She loved sunrises. She couldn't cook pancakes. And she used to hum this song when she brushed your hair. Micah smiled, eyes glistening. For the first time, the silence between them felt warm. Later that night, Grant tucked Micah in. The boy clutched a worn plush astronaut, blanket up to his chin. Are we safe now? He asked. Grant hesitated. Not because he didn't know, but because he wanted to answer right. I don't know if safe is ever forever, he said, but I do know this. You're not alone. You're never alone again. Micah reached out, and Grant squeezed his hand. Outside, the moon hung over the maple sapling. Just a sprig for now, but already rooted. It started with a letter. No stamp, no return address, just tucked between the screen door and the frame, sometime after midnight. Grant spotted it first, on his way out for groceries. He frowned, scanning the street. Empty. The envelope was thick, cream-colored, with his name in looping cursive. Mr. Grant Bennett. He opened it slowly. The air around him felt colder now. Inside, a single Polaroid, and a note. The photo showed Micah sitting at his school desk, from behind, through a window. The handwriting on the note was unmistakable. Nice tree out back. Pretty fragile, though, don't you think? E. Grant's blood ran cold. He looked up, scanning the tree line across the street. No one. No movement. Just whined through dry leaves. He slammed the door shut, bolted it, locked every window. Micah heard the panic. Sirens. Grant turned, breath shallow. We're okay, he lied, but pack your things. The boy blinked. Now? Grant nodded, already grabbing files, passports, the lockbox with emergency cash. No questions. We're leaving for a while. Micah obeyed, but his fingers trembled. 30 minutes later, they were on the road. Grant kept checking the rearview mirror, headlights flickering behind them. She's gone, he'd told the cops. She wasn't. The safe house was 3 towns over. Old cabin, off-grid. Belonged to a retired detective who owed Grant a favor. Inside, the furniture creaked. The air smelled like dust and cedar, but there was a gun in the drawer, a radio scanner by the window, and no Wi-Fi. Micah sat curled on the couch, knees tucked under his chin. "Is she coming?" he asked, voice barely a whisper. Grant didn't answer. He couldn't. Instead, he loaded the pistol, each click echoing like thunder in the small room. Outside, the wind howled through pine trees. Micah glanced at the boarded window, then at his father, and for the first time since the wedding, he asked the question neither of them had dared to speak aloud. "Will she ever stop?" Grant looked up. His voice was hollow. "I don't think she knows how." 3 nights passed, each one quieter than the last. Too quiet. Micah barely slept. Every creak in the floorboards, every gust of wind through the cracks, felt like her. Sarah. Not Emily, not the bride, the woman behind the mask. Grant kept watch by the window, the pistol never far from his reach. But when the storm came, it wasn't her they feared. It was the silence that followed. At 3:47 a.m., the radio scanner crackled to life. Possible 1016, white sedan, unmarked, parked east of Cabin Trail. Grant froze. Micah sat up in his sleeping bag, eyes wide. "She's here." No headlights, no footsteps, but they felt it. The stillness, the air tightening, like it was holding its breath. Grant crouched by the door, pistol raised. "Stay behind me," he whispered. Micah obeyed, but his fists were clenched. Then, knock. Not loud, not rushed, just calm, calculated, like she wasn't afraid, like she knew something they didn't. Grant opened the door fast, gun raised, but no one was there. Just a cassette tape on the doormat. No note, no label, just waiting. They played it. Static first, then her voice. Soft, chilling. "I see you picked a cabin with no internet." A pause. Smart. More static. Then, "You saved your son once. Let's see if you can do it again." Click. Silence. Micah looked at his father. Is she bluffing? Grant didn't answer, because he didn't know. But what he did know was that the war wasn't over. Just deeper, darker, quieter. And somewhere out there, Sarah was watching. This is KaYi, where truth hits harder than fiction, where every twist is real and every voice matters. If Micah's courage left you breathless, if your heart's still racing from what he uncovered, then don't just watch, belong. Join the KaYi family by hitting subscribe, dropping a comment, and sharing this story with someone who still believes in justice. Because here at KaYi, we don't just tell stories, we ignite them. And the next one could be yours.